Have you ever wished that you had some older brother, older sister, older mentor that you could call at any time of the day and run any decision past them, whether it be hiring, purchasing a new piece of equipment, marketing, strategy, anything? Wouldn't it be great to have that person? The book that we're going to go over today will be that for you. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this one. Okay, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to go over what I believe is the most important book for you to read as a private practice owner and manager. So the book that I'm discussing is this book here, Grow Your Medical Practice. One of the first lines in the book asks you a very key question. It says, do you own your medical practice or does your medical practice own you? This is a great question because it really sets the tone for the entire book. And a key question that we have to ask ourselves as managers, as doctors, as owners of private practices. And that question is, am I building a job that I love, a perfect job for me? Or am I building a business that I happen to also have a job at that business? This book helps guide you down the path of running an owner independent practice. So for time's sake, I'm going to share the 5 key lessons I learned from this book, but I would highly recommend you reading the book and going through it in a lot more detail. Now, this book was written by Dr. Singh, who is the founder and owner of Access Healthcare, which is a $164 million medical company with 83 offices, 66,000 patients, and they have an employee number of 900 people, including 177 physicians and providers. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, I don't want to do that. I don't want to build a practice that big. Neither do we. However, if a person can build something that large, they can probably, and they're starting from zero. They started from one practice and one employee and one provider, and they grew over time. They probably can give us some feedback on how to run our smaller private practices. So let's get started. Here are my 5 key points that I got from this book. Number 1, Dr. Singh says you must build a level 3 owner independent practice. He goes through all of the key levels. Level 1 is startup. And he says startup is identified as having no control and no freedom. What does that mean? That means that you have to be there every day to make it work. You have to breathe life into it. Dr. Singh's exact words were, doctors at level 1 are usually filled with a mixture of doubts and dreams, fears and ambitions. They work long hours in their practice to turn their vision for their practice into a sustainable enterprise. This is the startup phase. Everybody goes through it. Level 2 is an owner reliant practice. This is identified as control but no freedom. This is where, as a doctor, your efforts bring in the majority of the profits. This is where, as a doctor, you're making the majority of the decisions. You're kind of the lead person in everything. Everything kind of revolves around you. You're the star, and you have a bunch of a supporting cast to allow you to shine as bright as possible. In this stage, he says you have the control, but along with the control, you have all of the long hours that you have to work. And you have a strong sense that everything, all the responsibilities, the financial responsibilities, the medical care responsibilities rest on your shoulders. He describes this as having control, but no freedom. But the level 3 private practice is what he describes as total freedom, meaning the practice can still operate, can still provide the care that you've established, can still hold up to the standards that you have established for that practice without you personally being there all the time. So that's number 1. Build a level 3 independent practice. Tip number 2, he talks about the importance of leveraging your time. He discusses the 80-20 rule, which we've all heard before, that 20% of our actions produce 80% of our results. He challenges the reader through a series of questions to figure out what are those 20% activities that produce 80% of results. And then he even drills down deeper to figure out what are the 4% of activities that produce 64% of the results. And so he challenges you as a doctor or as an owner of a dermatology clinic to figure out What actions do you take that has the biggest impact in your private practice so you can use your time the most efficiently and get the best possible results? This was huge for me. I highly recommend. Of the entire book, I personally believe that this part that talks about how to capture your time, what's the name of that chapter? The name of the chapter is Reclaim Your Best Time. This may be the most important part of the entire book. Number 3, he talks about something called a sweet spot analysis tool that he has in the book. And it looks at low-hanging fruit, meaning opportunities that are easily at hand, opportunities that are huge home runs, and what's the carryover between those two things, so you can find what he calls a sweet spot. Again, dig into the book. This is huge because it's giving us so many ideas on things that we could do immediately that doesn't cost a lot of money, but can still be a home run. Here's a perfect example. He talked about how it's so easy to spend a lot of money on advertising and marketing, whether it may be Google Ads or Facebook. We do that right now. We're advertising. He says that you can get oftentimes a better return by simply looking back through your current patients and seeing who has appointments, who has that 6-month follow-up, that 1-year follow-up that they never came back and saw. So you could create a list of, 50 to 100 plus people who may fall into that category, and have one of your team members call them and reschedule them. And you may get a better return on that time and more patients on your schedule than you would of spending thousands and thousands of dollars on traditional advertising. This is just one example of how he said you can use the sweet spot analysis to truly have an impact on your private practice. Number 4, building your UBS. Now, what is a UBS? I'm going to read right from the book. He says, your UBS is both the organized collection of systems you develop and use to run your clinic, as well as the term that reminds your team to make the daily use, storage, refinement, and sharing of systems as a part of the culture of your practice. This was huge. This is something that we're actually undergoing right now to build our own personal UBS, but it's basically a structured way to create a system that everyone in your team is aware of, so you don't have this person who knows the information, but other people over here don't know the information. It's a way of collectively sharing information, so you have a system that's the driving force of your practice, as opposed to individuals who may have the experience or the personality or the skill set, because if they leave, then you have to start over from scratch. But when you have a UBS, the UBS does the training. The UBS shares the information, so everybody is on the same page. And number 5, he goes through 6 strategies to accelerate your practice. Again, I could go through all of these. I don't want this to be an hour-long video. I want to keep this short and simple. You're going to get the key details and information once you dig into the book. But these 6 strategies, we've already implemented some of these, and we're seeing some of the results. For example, in Accelerator 4, which is increase your profitability, he discusses the 3 key areas of increasing profitability: reducing expenses, enhancing revenues, and improving billing collections. And he goes through specifically in each one of those 3 areas how to do exactly that. To truly go through all of the details and information in this book and make a video on it, would take me at least an hour. I highly recommend you read this book. I highly recommend you not just read it cover to cover. You may just read the specific areas that you're working on at that time, but I believe that this is a reference book that you want to go back through over and over again as you're refining your process as a private practice owner. I hope this book is as beneficial to you as it has been to us.
What other specific topics related to the business of private practice management would you like for us to cover? Please share in the comments below or reach out to us on social media or our email address, thedermbiz@gmail.com. Our mission is to create a movement of collaboration and support amongst physician-owned private practice owners. If you would like to join that movement, again, don't forget to like, share, comment, and please don't forget to subscribe.